Okay. Hi everyone. So yeah, this is the fifth session on this project, and we'll start with the standard process. We'll check how you are progressing. I got some additional slides we will go through based on the feedback that I'm getting from people, and we'll go through that. But before that, let's celebrate some success. If you guys have done the project, made some progress on that, or you have any more questions specific to the project, let's start from there. How is the how you are able to make progress on the previous sub project parts? It could be anything, project part 1, 2, 3, whatever you have worked on.
Okay, Sanjay. Hi. Hi, everyone. So can I show something what I've done so far? Can I share the screen?
Yeah, sure, Dinesh. So Dinesh, few people have complained that that they are not able to start and all that. How long does it take for you to understand what's required, and what sort of experience do you have? Can you just briefly give us some idea so we?
I basically, I'm completely from a non-tech background.
Okay.
I don't have any experience before. It's been 7 to 8 months where I've started DevOps.
Mm-hmm.
Before that, I was very much interested into front-end development.
Okay.
That's when I started with HTML, CSS, and JavaScript.
Mm-hmm.
But then I thought, so funny I say, I thought, that had a lot of learning curve. Then
Mm-hmm.
I moved to DevOps, and I find it DevOps has more learning curve than the front end
Yeah,
development.
definitely.
But I got the same interest what I had on the front end development when I started to see the results. The automation thing, how do you deploy things, how do you deploy in Kubernetes, infrastructure, especially with the Terraform. It's all very interesting stuff. That's where I got started,
Right.
and it's been like 8 months now. But my only thing, what I've been doing is I'm just keep on practicing. That's it.
Yeah.
Even the July project also, I finished it, but there were a lot of issues.
Yeah.
One issue sorted, and there was another issue coming. Another issue started. That was same happening in the August project also.
Mm.
Um, Unfortunately, I had to start this project very late. I started on 23rd of this month. I mean, the August month.
10 days before.
So yeah, 10 days before.
Yeah.
So I've been doing that. Otherwise, maybe I would have done the mounting part and the
Mm.
EFK part as well.
Okay.
I wanted to do the Kubernetes manifest files also into Helm chart, but I did not get time. So probably by next week, I think I'll be
Sure,
finishing
sure,
everything.
sure. So basically, if I summarize, you have some development experience, and your DevOps and cloud experience is probably less than 1 year. And
No, I don't have development experience also. I just learned from YouTube tutorials. I
okay,
just developed some website my, for my interest. That's it. I did
okay.
not work anywhere before.
Mm-hmm. Front end is
IT is very new.
still quite some of the technologies are they earn good figure, but DevOps definitely it has a bigger longer learning curve, and but you see that in terms of monetization, and you get better rewards having those skills, DevOps and cloud, than front end or full stack developer.
Okay, yeah. I realized that.
Hmm. Oh, of course, we're not talking about the extreme cases where front-end engineer may be earning much more than a DevOps or cloud engineer also. But that depends what sort of skills, what tools, and which organization they get into. So, yeah.
Yeah, what I saw, I mean, from my learning experience, I mean, it can be different for every individual. What I saw was, you will not get anything in the first go. You have to keep trying. I mean, that's what I've been doing.
Right.
But the moment when you get what you wanted, that happiness will, it will make you do extra things. That's
Right.
what
Right.
I'm happy about.
All right. Let's see what you have done, and any questions you may have.
Yes,
No.
yes. I'll share the screen.
Kiran, you wanted to say something? I saw you unmute it, and
Uh, who?
Kiran unmuted himself, and I thought he has some question. But anyway, let's move on.
Yeah. So, so as of now, I don't have any PPT at the moment. I'm stuck at one place. So once that is sorted, I'll have the proper PPT like the July project. But for now,
yeah, let's start with basic. From first stage is to containerize the application. So how did you do that? How did you come to a image that you can deploy in Kubernetes?
Yes. Yeah. So the first thing, what we got, if you see here on the left-hand side, the application code. So this is a Spring Pet Clinic code, what you have given us for the project. So taken the same code, and I have built it in my PC, in my local PC for now.
Okay.
So because I was getting a build issue in the EC2. That's the reason I've just built it in my computer, in local computer.
So
I've
you
just
have
built the image.
Maven and all installed on your PC, or you're using
Yes.
container? Okay.
No. I have Maven, Java 17 version. Everything is sorted, and with the environment variables and all, everything is set. So I've built it. Once the image is built, it is in the Docker
Let's
Hub.
move step by step. Let's move step by step. Let's look at the Docker file. So if somebody is stuck or someone has doubt, they can ask now, or they can.
Okay. So this is a CI pipeline. What you're seeing. This is a folder. In the CI pipeline, we have the Jenkins file here. So this is the same Jenkins file. I'll show you every stage. So there's Sonar Cloud also. So what we have is, as soon as you have the code SCM in the Jenkins, the checkout code will automatically done. Once the code is checked out, the first stage is to do the Sonar Cloud scan. Okay. So once the Sonar Cloud scan stage is done.
Let me mute everyone. Let me mute.
Yeah.
Yes, you may have to unmute yourself.
Yes. Yeah. So once that stage is done, I'm building the artifact out of it. Once the artifact is built, I'm making it I'm building the Docker image. For that, if you see, the Docker file is this. So basically, the base image is Java 22 version.
Yeah.
This is just a normal command. I'm just creating a directory in the image. I'm just copying the artifact whatever I've built into this particular location. I'm making this particular directory as the working directory. So whatever the commands we are going to run will execute from this particular directory. So we have this. This is the main important thing. This is I should say this is a culprit. If you people don't get this right, you can't connect the application to the DB.
Right.
That's a major thing, because these things maybe we will be getting to know with the developer if you have the interaction.
Right.
But in our case, we don't have such thing. But once if you get this thing environment ready, I think it will be good. So with this Docker file, I build the image.
So the developer, communication is not there, but these details are there in the README file of the repo. So if you
it's there.
Yeah, obviously slightly complex to understand, not very clear that that this is the line you need to put there, but some details that you need to start your container with a MySQL profile.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because they yes, of course they have given us clear instructions. They have designed the project with two profiles. One is MySQL and one is PostgreSQL, and they have the local also H2 database. So whichever you want, you can build the image with, right? So once the image is built, I'm having it pushing it to the Docker Hub. So this particular stage, if my build is success, this is the only part where I'm stuck. I'll talk about that little later. But if that is successful, once the image is pushed, I'm triggering the CD pipeline. So basically, we have the CI pipeline different and the CD pipeline different. And in between these two pipelines, we have the ArgoCD as an operator. Okay. What it does, as soon as this, because as soon as this jar artifact is done, I am dynamically getting the image name with the build number.
Right.
So that particular build number will be sent to the CD pipeline. Now, if you ask me where is the CD pipeline, this is a CD pipeline. So if you see in the CD pipeline, that particular build number will be reflected in the app deploy. What is app deploy? First, I will tell you what is app deploy. This is an app deploy. So this is the image. This is a Docker Hub location, my repository. And here I have to get the build number dynamically.
Yep.
Because I can't come see. Let's for an example, let's say developer has made some changes and he has pushed the code, he has built it, and the Docker image is made and it is pushed to Docker.
Right.
Okay. Now that particular build number, I want it dynamically. I can't come here and say, okay, what is the image name? I have to change it.
Correct.
Right. So that particular thing did not work out for now because of the build jar. The build was not happening because as soon as I install Jenkins, first time it was building, but the second time the Shootfire plugin, some issue is coming with the code.
Okay.
Okay. So for now, the image is built and it is pushed to Docker Hub.
Right. So basically what you have done is slightly advanced stage, but it's not completely done. Where so there are two repositories basically here. There is one repository for your application containerization, and then there is one repository for GitOps operations.
Yes.
Technically, there are two different repositories, and your Jenkins is actually updating your or controlling which image to be deployed.
Correct. So if you see the GitLab repository, I have the CI pipeline separate and the CD pipeline separate. So as soon as the CEI is finished, it will trigger the CD and it will deploy the image dynamically, and it will be seen in the Kubernetes clusters with the help of ArgoCD. It will be reflected. So I have the demo for that now.
Let's go slow by slow. If there is any intermediate step, let's discuss that also. If there is anything you have done.
Yes. Okay. So before that, I will explain you the Kubernetes files also, because that's also very important.
Right.
If you see here on the left-hand side, first we have to deploy the storage class, because what kind of a storage you want on the cloud also matters. Once the storage class is decided, I am making the PV. This is a persistent volume, and this volume ID you should have beforehand, or you can also make this also dynamic. So how much ever the claim you have, that particular volume will be created in the cloud. That also can be done. But what I have done so far is, I have this
should be basically
cloud.
It should be done in advance.
Yes, it should be done in advance.
That's why we mentioned that it's like a day zero activity. The storage class, you will be making it ready, available to the cluster so that the claims can be made.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah, the claim is made, and the EBS volume I have in AWS, that particular ID I'm calling here, and I'm saying I just want only 2 GB.
That's fine.
Okay, and in the PVC, I'm claiming the volume what I have created. I'm just claiming only 1 GB for my project now.
Right.
Okay.
Can we talk
once
about
this is done,
can we talk about the claim? There is something called read write once.
this is a normal standard manifest file what we have in the documentation. I've just used only read write once access mode. I've not changed any defaults at this stage. I'm just claiming only 1 GB from the volume.
Right. Just understand that in case your pod needs to refer to some storage class where it only needs read-only access, it's not going to write. So there are different access modes available. So we can go for a read-only also.
Oh, okay.
From security point of view or any such reason, if your pod requires only read-only, there are multiple access modes available. We can use the appropriate one. But read-write once is like it has read and write access. Okay, so we you mean to say we can put only read once also here? Yeah, read only or something like that. Whatever.
Something like that. Okay. Okay. So once this is done, we are ready to deploy the other files. So first thing we need to note here is, once this PVC PV storage class is done, whatever the files we are deploying, there is an order here. Only once maybe this is only particular to this project. We need the MySQL deployment first. Only then, when we have the application deployment, it will bootstrap to the MySQL DB. If you don't have the MySQL DB first, it cannot go and bootstrap it to the DB deployment.
Right.
So that is the reason first we need to have the deployment file ready. And these are the config map and secret injections what I'm doing for the MySQL DB, because these all details have been given in the project itself. Whatever the project we have taken Pet Clinic in the GitHub, they have given these details. These details only they know. So if you see here, I have my MySQL password and root password in the secret, and whatever the username and the database name, all these things are in the config map. And this particular URL is important because, if you see, we have had this in the Docker file, this URL. Now we are overwriting it. Where is that? Yeah. Config. Yeah, we are overwriting with this one. Now, where is this one? This is the main thing. This is you will get only when you deploy it. Deploy the DB. Once you get the DB, whatever the service attached to the deployment, this is a MySQL service attached to the MySQL deployment, and this name with the port to be injected here.
Okay, let's talk about this problem.
Yeah.
Do you really want, like, Terraform has such smart these features where it can detect the dependencies. If it needs EC2 use within EC2, you specify VPC to be used. VPC will be created first, and this will be created second. Now,
correct.
That's the smart thing, right? You don't want to create a help or create some deployment where you have to do something first, second. How will you handle that scenario?
That I'm afraid I don't know that, because if I knew that, I would have done this directly one command, kubectl apply.
Right.
I would have deployed all the manifest files.
No worries. Take it to the spend some time, understand how that's done. So basically, within the app container, so you within your help chart or whatever package you will be deploying this for later on, right? Because these will never be distributed individual packages. That first you deploy DB and then. So what you will do is you will deploy it as a single package, but in your application package, you will say that it has a dependency on DB. So DB container should come first. Its state should be running, not running or something. Once it comes to running state, then your app container will be attempted to start.
Yeah, that's right. Otherwise, I tried in different thing here. If you see, sorry, this Infra. I did not know that option. I think definitely there would be some smart option. Otherwise,
right. It will be very difficult because it will not be able to. If there is no dependency checking available, then that's a massive disadvantage because
massive disadvantage.
Will start in different order, and you will not be able to control that.
Yeah. So once this is done, after MySQL deploy and MySQL service is done, I have deployed the application manifest file and the application service file. Right. Now, my cluster is ready with the Terraform EKS cluster. I've deployed all these files in the EKS cluster. So if you see, this is the image what we got, currently what we have. So directly, shall I show this, or you want me to see any other details in the manifest files, Sanjay?
I think I am clear. I'm just trying to ask questions so that it's ready for like anybody who is watching this video as a recording or live. If anybody has other questions, they can ask it now if they are stuck somewhere.
Yeah. So this is the image name. This is the thing I have deployed. Okay. Just for an interest,
Mhm.
I will show you one small change, and we can see that reflecting in the ArgoCD.
Yep.
First, I will make it to 2 replicas. I'm just committing normally, but you can have the meaningful names. So once this is done, you can see the effect is taking.
Right.
I have made a webhook also because by default ArgoCD will take 3 minutes. It seems they say. So that's the reason I've made a webhook.
Awesome.
And once this is done, you can see the 2 replicas, 2 pods. And one more thing I will show you. Now, if you find owners, this one I've already did, but let's see if it is the data is persisting or not. I'll add one more entry here.
The container is not stable yet. Why is maybe?
This ArgoCD has some issue, it will be ready when we refresh it.
Okay. One is still pending, right?
Yeah.
It could very well be the resource is not there or anything of that sort.
Mm. I have taken a bigger node only. I've taken T2 medium for this. I think I should have taken T2 large because
T3 medium for sure, that's what I tested with. T3 medium is slightly suitable. Take one node rather than two nodes. T3 medium. Most likely it's you not having enough resources.
I'll delete the deployment and I'll reapply. I think yes, there must be some resource issue.
Hmm.
Yeah, one is running now. I think the second one also will take a little time. Meanwhile, we can discuss on any other
Yeah.
questions or things.
I do have one related to your Docker file, Dinesh.
Mhm.
Why do we need to mention that SQL step? You mentioning that that is the most important step. Uh,
Yeah.
what if we do not have the SQL configuration? We just need to push that file. Forget about the forward steps that you need to deploy it somewhere for that. I just want to create that image and push it to Docker registry. Still that step is required, the below 2 lines, the bottom 2 lines?
Of course, this is mandatory because this is a command which will run as soon as you run the container or pod. This is like a starting command. If you don't have
Okay.
this, it will create the image. You have the image in the pod, but what it should do, we did not tell that, right?
Okay. And what about the SQL URL?
SQL URL is an environment variable. The project is designed in such a way, this MySQL URL it needs. That's when it goes and connects to the DB. If you see here, in the application, they have clearly mentioned what are the environment variables we have to take. These all
So my
environment variables are
question
required.
is, Dinesh, my question is slightly different. I do not want to deploy this application anywhere for now. Okay, I don't want to deploy it anywhere for now. I just want to create an image out of that jar file, and that needs to be pushed to Docker registry. Now the question here is, do we still need to create that line?
No, if you don't want to deploy, I mean, there's no point, right? I mean, if you really don't want to deploy, if you just want to have the Docker image ready and keep it in your registry, you are good to go. No problem.
But then that image will not be suitable for deployment, right? So that will have drawbacks. So, and it will be probably, you may get the home screen of that pet clinic app, but it will not have the database capabilities.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Just the user interface.
I got stuck there. It's giving me some errors. So yeah, just wanted to check that.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. If I can just add, I think there are, so from my understanding on this pet clinic app, there are 3 databases. One is the in-memory H2 database, which is the default. And then obviously you can change it to either MySQL or Postgres. So I think if you omit that line and deploy, it means that you're trying to just use the in-memory database, and that should normally work without anything else. But obviously it depends on where you're configuring it and how much memory you got and whether you can, whether all the other requirements are satisfied. But yeah, I think that should still work. But obviously you don't have database capabilities with MySQL or Postgres.
All right, thanks.
On that same subject, if you look at the Docker file, right, any Docker file for that matter, do we know like which are the most important lines in a Docker file?
I think the entry command, CMD entry point, also very important. There's a lot of difference. Even though when you have the entry command like that, you can still override it if you have the entry point also instead of CMD.
Correct. So that's what just this random thought came to me, that probably the line number 1 where you define what your base image is, and the last line where you define once the Docker image starts, how do you want it to run? Those are the 2 probably the most important thing to really look closely. Other things are like, obviously they are required for any Docker image to work, but they would mostly be copy some image, build, uh, set some environment variables and that kind of thing. But first and last line actually define how your image will be distributed and what base image you are using.
But now I'm keeping it only 1 replica. I think there is some resource issue.
Yeah,
I'll increase the node to, yeah. So it has taken the effect. We can see the one pod running.
Yep.
Refresh it. So we have this. So I added the owner also with Sanjeev's name. We can see the data. I've also kept ready. So just to not waste the time, I'm inside the DB now. We can see the new entry, what we made just now.
Right.
So, and one more thing I will show you. Let's say we have changed the image, right? And so I've just pushed it to a repo.
Can we make some code changes and push a new repository or something? New
Yes.
Docker.
Yeah. So I have made a new Docker image right here. So it has taken the effect. It is creating it.
Actually, it was very fast. I couldn't follow.
Oh, sorry. So earlier we have this image with final image only. The name is this. I just made it another image with number 3. I had 2 images just for the demo purpose. I've created 2 images. So I've changed it and I've applied it.
Okay.
Even though I have one replica, it is taking 2 here. I have only one replica here in the repo. I think ArgoCD, I have watched few other tutorials as well, but ArgoCD is having some still UI issues. So just before we saw it was changing, but now it is still showing 2 pods. The repo has only one.
This is, you are looking at app. App has 1 in your repository. Where is your app related deployment?
The replica is 1.
Right.
The image is this.
But
So this is a. We can see the image 3 only, same as what we have in repo.
Correct.
And if you see the replica is only 1.
Right.
But it is still taking time to update. I think I did not save this. Yeah, I saved it.
Can you check the one that's already there in that?
Which one?
So the one is getting created, right? Pet clinic. What? And there is a down below. There is a one below that.
Yes, this one.
Yeah.
This shows. Yeah. So
This
there are
uses
2.
image. This
One
uses image.
normal image.
Old
Yeah.
image. So basically, once your new image with 3 comes up, that's when the old image will be destroyed.
Yeah.
But
So I think there are 2 replica sets. I know where this pod is getting created. I have only one deployment. 3 deployments. I know where this thing is getting created. I don't have any deployment other than the MySQL DB.
Just give it a because you have created one with new version, right? New image file that will only be deleted once that comes up, and your previous, for example, you have requested one replica, one replica, and you already have that with an older image, and now you update the image. Once the second image comes up, then the first one will be destroyed.
Yeah, but I've reapplied the same deployment file. No, Sanjay.
That's okay.
See, even after deleting, there must be some. You see here, I have only MySQL deployment and this one. I've just deleted this one. I'm deleting the deployment. Deployment deletion should delete the replica set and pod set as well, right?
Right.
But okay, delete. Apply. Again, it is creating. Okay, let this one create anyway. So there must be some issue. I just kept everything ready to show the effect to see the effect. The data will be persisted anyway. There's no problem with the data at all. Yes, it is running. Yes, this is also running. This will take little time because so I've had a different image in the code and I've deployed it, built it with the just to see if we change the image names, we can see. Now, if we go and change final image 3 to just normal final image, we will see the old image again.
Right.
It is just showing configured, so then there's no new deployment. So you should see the thing is, I'm not pushing it here. I have to push it to repo. Now, Sanjeev, I think I understood the problem. What I should do, I should not apply here. I just need to push it.
You just have
Once I push it, this will apply it.
Yes. That's the
what I'm doing here is I'm applying here and again
I'm
pushing it here.
You are pushing and why you have to apply every time.
Exactly. That's the reason. Yes. I will delete that requirement.
Because once you push, then automatically ArgoCD should detect that there are changes and it should make those necessary changes in the environment.
Correct. Yes, perfect. Got it. Now this has been happening with the ArgoCD now. I don't have to apply here anymore.
Right.
This will take little time. Yes, it is taking. Yes, it's done. So we are seeing the old image now again.
Awesome. So basically different version of the application.
Yeah.
Cool, cool, cool.
So we have the multiple applications, we can control it with the ingress as well. So with the path, if you want to see first image or second image, we can do that also. A little complex thing we can try by next week.
What else can we, what other changes we can make in this?
I think what I'm thinking, Sanjay, with in the same application, we can integrate dat tree, whatever you also had it
No, that's just
earlier.
ignore that. That's actually what happened during this project itself. After we discussed that startup, that tree has closed. So that is not available. You search online about that organization. They just yeah. So it was a startup like HashiCorp or someone, and they just closed their operations, and that's just in the last 2-3 weeks ago. I think we should look at the deployment strategies also, Dinesh. Now, since you are so close, I think adding some sort of deployment strategy is probably good, and that should probably cover everything, because this is good that you are able to deploy a new version of the application by making changes to that Jenkins file automatically. That's one step. But there could be additional stuff that if it detects that a new image has to be deployed, then there should be some instruction specifically how it should behave.
Okay.
So
You
just
mean to say like canary deployment,
Henry and
such kind of deployments, right?
exactly.
Blue-green deployments.
Blue-green deployment. So in the document I have left some of those strategies images. Mainly look at rolling update and recreate. So recreate is where you will destroy everything, recreate all the containers with the new image version. Rolling update would be you will specify how many you want stable. Like if you have 10 replicas, you want one replica to be upgraded in a sequence. So 9 will have maintained your old image, 1 will be upgraded, then second, then third, then fourth, and like that. So just 2 or 3 additional lines in this entire setup, and you can easily understand how rolling up and recreate will work.
Sure.
That's the advantage. Once you do something, once you build this base structure, then you can start adding as many best practices, all sort of things. Like if, for example, if you not specified the size of the Docker image, like how much CPU and RAM, you can add an additional block there. Once you have the rolling strategies, the deployment strategies, you can start adding those additional things.
Yes, I think, once, as you said, what you said is right. Once we have the base, a project like this ready, you can keep on adding whatever the interesting feature you feel like. If you want to add, whatever we added, ArgoCD, maybe we will add EFK, maybe we will add Kafka, whatever, feels like it fits into the project. I think one project is enough to experiment all the DevOps
all these
best practices and everything. All this can be done.
All of this.
So for now, I have my infra with the Terraform, even the Jenkins with the Terraform, everything with the Terraform. So whenever we want, we can destroy and provision it and experiment it.
Right. What else can we add? Those small things that will make a bigger difference. So we can look at how we can, because in your source code right now, your secrets will be managed by your default Kubernetes secret management.
Yes.
Dinesh,
for that, I think, yes, we can have the HashiCorp for the secret management.
Complex setting up, but yeah, just experiment with if you can accomplish this with AWS Secret Manager itself.
Yes.
Okay.
We can do that, and we can also have the image instead of having it on a Docker Hub. We can have it on the ECR, so that one benefit is we can scan the image directly in ECR itself. We don't need any third-party plugin for that.
We don't need that. So directly having the role assigned to the node that we have as given, the node will have the role to pull the image, and you don't have to pass any username password.
Yes.
Okay.
We can also integrate scannings as well, right from the starting. If we see the July project, what we have done, we have integrated Sonar Cloud scanning, and we have in this project we can integrate image scanning, and also once the application is deployed, we can do the dynamic application security testing as well.
Right. Let me share
You
my
know,
screen briefly, and I noted down because people were asking how we can extend this project in future. So I noted down few slides where we can discuss all those things. And I will write down if you have any thoughts. Just one second.
yes, please. I also would like to ask the same thing, because once this project can be done from end to end, right from starting to end, without leaving any best practices, I think it will be a very good project.
You guys can see my screen?
No, I'm not seeing it.
I'm sharing my screen. 1 second. Let me try another time.
Oh, sorry. I have to stop the share first.
Okay. Is it done?
It is stuck.
I think now you can see, right?
Yes.
Okay. A lot of things, as I mentioned in the first session, like it's not Kubernetes, the entire world is not that you can accomplish in 4 weeks or 5 weeks time frame. There are a lot of stages, a massive maturity that the duration and the learning curve is there. So I will be adding, first of all, some links here. I think these are all from Sharat's project, where we have repositories to create cluster, create the Docker image, and also deployment of the package, the manifest files for Pet Clinic app. So you can use this. I'll probably add from Dinesh as well. What else we can look at, or what other things that in the organizations people will definitely do. So there are so many things, but I have tried to bring which will definitely be there in the organizations. So there will be some sort of runtime injection of, you can say, environment specific values. So you may be taking a dev image from some environment. You may be having less number of replicas for a dev environment, and you may be deploying very frequently for a dev environment, but you may not be doing all those things for a prod environment. Maybe prod you are taking from a different release branch, more number of replicas, and a lot of other things will be different. Maybe you are using an RDS cluster, RDS database, which is outside of your cluster, and you want to give the production URL and something of that sort, and dev will have its own. So within those YAML file, whatever values you are getting, they all can be templatized, and then at runtime, those values can be changed. So just before deployment, that you are deploying to dev cluster, UAT cluster, and prod cluster, those things can be changed, and Customize is a tool to do that sort of thing. So most likely this will be used in the environment. The secret management will definitely not be the default secret management that we are doing in this project. It will never be the same because everything is open. All your username passwords are actually in the repository. So mostly they will be using the AWS or Azure specific vault, but people also use the HashiCorp vault and that kind of security management. So you can experiment with at least one of them. Then in this project, we looked at only one microservice deployed, which is exposed outside. So for example, pet clinic is exposed to our customers, which people are calling from outside. And within that, internally, it's using another database related microservice. But we probably should add one more microservice in this entire structure so that we can experiment with a little bit with the ingress controller. So I will just take a look at the image on the right hand side. You will see that there is an application load balancer. So when you create an ingress controller in this one, when you created a load balance, you exposed your service as load balancer type, then you get an automatic URL from AWS. In our case, we don't have this slash goes to target group, which goes to service 1, service 2, and service 3, service A, B, and C. We don't have that complex setup in this project. So last week there was a bit of confusion, right? That will it end up creating a lot of ALBs and it will have massive impact on the cost of the project. So usually there is going to be just one ingress controller in your environment. It could be an ALB, it could be Nginx. Basically, it will be an entry point into your Kubernetes cluster. So anybody who is needing pet clinic, or there is another, say, there is a pet clinic app for pet owners, and there is a same sort of similar microservices for doctors or some other stuff. So those will, all of them will be routed through the same ALB, and based upon the rules defined, it will say that pet clinic / doctors or pet clinic / patients or the pets, they will all go to different microservices. So try to create this kind of setup in your case. Maybe just deploy an Nginx container and try to see that from the same application load balancer, you are able to hit that that there is a base URL and then there is a path, and based on different path, you are able to reach to different microservices. This will definitely be there because in the industry or in the actual projects, you will not have just one microservice deployed. We have that by any chance. So you can look at other any other repository. I have in one repository in the I'm not sure if it's still there, but there was one repository that I recommended. There is a retail store sample app. So retail store sample app has multiple containers, multiple microservices. So you can use this to deploy also. You don't have to write Docker file and all sort of things for this. Everything is there. You just have to use those Docker images and deploy that application. So it's much simpler than Spring Pet Clinic because everything is done. Spring Pet Clinic does not have Docker file. You have to build that. This has everything. So try that, or maybe pick anything else, or maybe Nginx. So that's
Sanjeev, sorry to interrupt. You said customize is a tool which will help, right? But we also have the Helm where only the values.chart the file can be in different environments. Exactly. They can only change the value and do that, right?
Correct.
That's also possible.
Helm is also a tool for that, but this one will combine your you can say a base manifest file and override with additional environment variables.
Okay, I think I will check on that.
Something like in Terraform you would have used. There is a Terraform source code repository. Then there will be tf-vars file.
Yeah, terraform.tf-vars file. Right? We also have auto-tf.
We can, right? Usually what happens is there will be 3 or 4 different tf-vars file in every organization. So they will have one for dev, one for QA, one for prod, or whatever environments you have. And then the environment will be created based on that. You will do a Terraform plan, apply, but you will also pass the
Terraform.tfs file,
which
hyphen file. Yes.
Very similar concept here.
Got it. There's also one application for directly from the Google in the GitHub where it has got 8 to 10 microservices. It is also similar to what you have said, retail store, shopping cart, and Redis small Redis database is also there. Only few of the services have the connection with other few. Only 2 or 3 microservices doesn't have any connection with other microservice.
Yeah, so
that's also very interesting.
Just make sure that the endpoint is exposed outside or like more than one.
Yes.
Because if it is Redis, then it probably is another internal microservice.
Correct.
Right. So just make sure that it has more than one endpoint. Then look at some of the other tools. So this, let me just, so this one is related to this diagram. And all this is related to this small diagram. So there is something called Aqua Bench. Now it's a open source security scan product. You can also directly integrate from your AWS console. You can look at in the security hub which product you want to integrate. It will automatically make connection to your controller and that sort of thing. I have not experimented with this through this process, but just try that once your cluster is there. Try to integrate with Kubebench, and it will tell you as an outcome that whether your cluster is configured in an appropriate way or not. Is it following the security best practices or not? So something like what Dartree was suggesting. So whether all the best practices are followed or not. One additional thing we'll say is, not on this, you mentioned. So experiment with the container registry from Amazon. These are some of the things. And then the last bit, again, most of the organization will have something of this sort where, because these containers are very short-lived, you will be doing a lot of, there will be some way that your pods are not running, you will increase the replicas, and there will be short-term mechanism to bring your application back to stability. But in long term, you would want to analyze the failure on the containers and why certain containers crashed, what was their logs at that point in time before they crashed. So because they live for a short duration and then they go away, you need some sort of logs coming from those containers going somewhere central location where you can monitor them. So I have seen most of the organization will have a Fluent bit deployed on every worker node, not every pod or not every container, one per worker node, which can then take all the logs from that pod and then stream to maybe Elasticsearch, Kibana, or whatever tool. The tools on the right-hand side are not so relevant. It's the architecture on the data collection and the processing of that data. That's more important. On the right-hand side, it can go to Elasticsearch, then Kibana, Grafana, CloudWatch maybe. CloudWatch is a very cheap way to store logs for a very long period of time because they eventually go to S3. So that's another way. But you will see some sort of way to collect the logs from these containers because containers are short-lived and then stored somewhere for long-term storage. And maybe a lot of analysis, how many pods are there, how they are crashing or how they are behaving, those sort of things in the Kibana dashboard. And everything real time. So you will see these kind of things.
AWS also has open search for inbuilt for combining Kibana and other.
Right.
data logging and tracing.
I actually saw that AWS has a Grafana and Prometheus as a managed service also.
Yes.
Last
Yes,
week
it
we
is
were
there.
trying to deploy that from our end, but if somebody is actually on AWS, then they can use these AWS managed services also. So you just do click, 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 and you have a Grafana environment ready, and same with Prometheus.
Because Prometheus has a lot of components, so many to deploy and all.
Right. So these are definitely some of the things we should experiment, and that these will probably cover all aspects that for you to justify that story that you have worked on Kubernetes application deployment. So not just deployment, GitOps, monitoring, logging, secret management, rolling updates, all those things gets covered with this project.
Sanjeev, do you, by any chance, have you experimented on this Rancher for clusters? Because I've seen, in my experience in 8 months, I've seen so many people talking about Rancher because you can connect the EKS cluster directly in Rancher cluster, and we have all the plugins like Helm, Prometheus, Grafana, Kubench, Lens, everything. It is integrated and it is very efficient and fast. You don't have to. There is no overhead of installing a lot of things.
The only thing, I have seen that Rancher being used in organizations, and for like very large Kubernetes clusters, they would prefer Rancher to be the overall, managing that.
Managing.
Have seen that, but the issues are that a lot of things on the Rancher UI have to be done manually, and there is no logging of those actions, like who performed that and why certain things are done. So they are not source code driven all the time.
Correct.
So for
So
example,
there's no single source of truth.
Exactly. That is the only disadvantage. Otherwise, Rancher is a very, very great product, and companies, when they are managing one or two clusters, they may not think about Rancher that much. They will say that, okay, maybe it's a bit of overhead, but once they grow, then they look at Rancher to manage multiple clusters. But what disadvantage I have found is who is doing what. A lot of things done manually on the screen. That takes away the GitOps and the all other good things that Kubernetes offers.
But in the interviews, if the interviewer is asking the same thing,
Yeah.
But obviously in the production, you'll be having a lot of clusters. We are just practicing with one here.
Correct.
But at that point, should we tell them that, yes, we have Rancher kind of a thing, or no?
It all
what should be the
depends. Like
answer?
I would suggest that you get some idea about how you can integrate your cluster with Rancher, and then experiment that what additional benefits it offers, and also understand what issues, what disadvantages you have.
Okay.
I mentioned doing that Rancher in the slides up front. Trying these. I think Rancher offers
Lens is also correct.
Yeah. Rancher, I think, offers a free trial or something. Just experiment with this. The Rancher does offer free trial or not, and then you can integrate your cluster with that. The only disadvantage or the companies will not use it probably is that it's something like AWS console, right? It's a console for your cluster. You can do a lot of operation, add a node, deploy something. So you do it on the user interface of.
Yes. But are you using in your environments, in your organization?
Yeah, we use Rancher as well for some of our applications, because we don't use Kubernetes cluster. We use Docker Compose files to create the environment. So in that case, it's slightly useful. But we are moving away from that.
So you're still not in Kubernetes environment yet?
We are not in this specific organization.
Okay.
We use a bit of Kubernetes for GitLab runners and that sort of thing, but not for production customer-facing applications.
All right.
But the July project that we did, that's one way, if you see, is one way of getting rid of your Docker, the Rancher. So we are moving away from Rancher by following those practices. Like we start, what Rancher does for us in that specific organization is it takes a Docker Compose file and creates those containers in a specific sequence. So if we construct that Docker Compose file and at the startup of the EC2, we start what Rancher does, then we actually don't need Rancher that much.
Okay.
That's why that July
So in Jenk,
was
so
actually a real-time project where we are moving away from Rancher and trying to use Docker Compose to start the containers. Anyway, that will be like not in the context.
Yes. So Sanjay, I have a couple of questions on the same project. If we are using Jenkins, we are actually working on so many plugins, right, for the Kubernetes, Docker, and everything.
Mm-hmm.
If the situation is if I had to use a GitLab, I mean, do you have the same sort of plugin management and all
No,
those things in the
you don't
GitLab?
need any such plugins or anything with GitLab environment or with we use like everything is there is one single file will be there, something like Jenkins file. There will be GitLab CI file. You have the option how you want your GitLab file to start with. So for example, your Jenkins file is there, right? Here also you can specify that start a specific Docker image to run. So if you are building, you have GitLab, your organization is building Java application, you will take a Java based image, Java specific, Maven specific or Gradle or any such thing, that base image, and then in your environment, automatically that image will be created and you can build your application through that.
So whatever can be is done with Jenkins can be done with GitLab, right?
Yeah,
It's
definitely
possible, right?
It's possible. Maybe far better and far secure.
Oh, okay. Then I should
Because
give
you
it
are
a try.
not relying on a lot of plugins to be built. It's like a product built specifically for CI/CD. Jenkins is like very open source and a lot of things, being added by the community.
Okay.
So even we will trust some of these products, but say for example, a bank, we don't know if. So where I was working like few years ago, there was a long process to find a plugin, install it in dev environments, and then installing that in production. There used to be a long process of approvals that I'm bringing an open source plugin in Jenkins, which will do these 2-3 things, and I have to like look for approvals and that kind of thing. So people don't trust those plugins, what destructions or what issues they can cause.
That's true.
And then otherwise you have to go with CloudBees version, and you need to pay for their support, and they're very expensive. So same worry I have with the Terraform also now. Now there will be an open source Terraform, there will be a HashiCorp Terraform, and if within open source people start building plugins that this is a specific plugin by Spacelift, this is a specific plugin by Scalar, different companies will have their plugins, right? They will sold it in the open source community, and it will be very similar to Jenkins open source in future. So that is the concern on that Terraform being open source now.
I think Sanjeev, do you also think the DB whatever we're using in the project, the ideal way is to use the pods kind of a thing, or you prefer to be having AWS RDS? Because scaling the database application can be done, but it is not as efficient as having a RDS
Yeah, a lot of organization will not use database inside the cluster. They would rely on AWS to scale that sort of thing. But for our use case, we wanted to experiment with that.
Correct. But for the interview point of time, it's better to say we are using.
It's better to say that that we used RDS.
Yes.
Chances of they using RDS is more. And then you can specify that it was an architectural decision that RDS is sufficient for our requirements. So why should we complicate putting it into a Kubernetes cluster?
Okay. So Sanjay, whatever you have mentioned, apart from that, what complex things are actually done in the organization in terms of Kubernetes environment?
So many, there are a
This
lot
is
of
it.
other things, a lot of tools. As I mentioned, it's open source project from many years. So a lot of plugins. Just you mentioned, right? Customize is one thing, then Helm can do few things. A lot of it, it's probably a 6 months to 1 year journey to master the Kubernetes, the entire thing, and a lot of other things. I'll probably try to bring some more in the subsequent sessions, or in the presentation itself. I'll put those things. But again, I don't want to dilute it such that I give you so many tools to study and so many tools to research on. I want to give you something that will be used at many locations, many companies or many organizations. If I say Rancher, then it's not guaranteed that the organization will be using Rancher or not. But if
so when do you think we'll be? When do you think we'll be? I mean, you can say that you are ready for the interview with Sanjay, because this thing will go on for learning new things, doing.
So interviews, I don't think we need to wait for anything, or we need to that once you reach to this level, then you go for interviews. I think if you have worked on these 1 or 2 projects, July and August projects, with your own experience, I think
Yes.
you are pretty much ready for taking up the interviews. And it may happen that you may not be able to succeed in the first or second round, maybe, but you get that practice, and you don't have to wait anymore.
Okay.
Because there is no end point, right? There is no, you deep dive, you do these things, you will identify that, okay, there are few additional things missing. You do those additional things, you will identify that more best practices are possible, more ways of deployment are possible. So all those things will be there. You build your own story based on project 1 and 2, that I deployed an application in a secure environment in a VPC, following all the best practices. So that story that we discussed in the July project. So here the story is very similar, that I deployed a microservices based application in a Kubernetes environment, where I integrated with my repository with a GitOps operator, and all the changes that were being made in the application were deployed to Kubernetes cluster at runtime automatically, that sort of thing. And then I did the monitoring side of it. I integrated with container registry in my environment. I also integrated with secret management, that kind of thing. So you will explain these things. Then they will ask you questions that, okay, how did you do that? Did you use this tool or not? And that's it, like that sort of discussion. I don't think there will be, you have to wait 6 months, be ready for something ultimate, and then you go for it. I think you are ready.
Okay, this I wanted to listen because I'm feeling still not confident in applying for the job. So that's the reason I asked you.
Go for a mock interview. Saurabh is getting ready for
I can do that. And yeah, just to add to it, I think a lot of interview is also focused on your failure sides, as to what are the errors that you encountered, and what are the key problems that you found out when you were deploying. Because what an interviewer is trying to judge is whether you have really done a project or not. Because theoretical concepts, people can go only to a certain depth, but unless and until you have found out, let's say you are talking about your environment variable in your Docker file. So unless and until you have encountered that error, you would not be able to explain as to why that was important, or what error did you face when you were trying to deploy, and when you failed. So
that's true.
Interview is not based on just one question or answer. It's just a subsequent set of steps where you try to convince the interviewer that yes, you have done something, and you are not just theoretical. So that is the goal of this project as well. Yep.
So Saurabh, I think this is very interesting. So whatever the project we have done for July and August, I think we can portray the same thing. I mean, I'm talking about myself.
So,
I'll portray the same thing. So whatever the issues you faced, if he asks me, so
yes,
I'll tell whatever the issues I faced
Exactly,
during
same
this
thing.
project.
Same
exactly.
stuff. So for example, you will say, oh, there was nobody explaining me a Docker file, how it has to be built. Then I had to build it from scratch. I have to I have to go through that README process or talk to the developers and get their understanding. They were not sure how a Docker file has to be built. So then I helped them. So all those things that we faced here is actually what happens in the organizations, and that's how things are built.
So similarly, when you were talking about that, when you are having a build number and you are trying to get that build number into your CD process, it's not getting it automatically, right? So you have to pass in some configuration or parameter. The interviewer might be interested in how you actually resolved it, right? So once you start doing it yourself, then you would automatically get those answers which an interviewer is asking. But unless and until you have done it, just looking at the project will not give you that sort of depth. That is why it is important for everyone to go through this process, get the errors, so that you can talk about what the errors were and how you resolved it. So that's the key.
I spoke in one of the video also, Dinesh, just recalling that when you go for that interview, obviously there will be a point where you will probably answer, say, 8, 9, 10 questions already. Then what is that final or differentiating questions people will usually bring is they will want to understand what issues you faced, because somebody going through the project or following some medium document, or they can also talk about a similar thing, but problems is the issues you face when you actually build it. And if you are able to explain the issues, for example, I usually ask people, like you asked me, issues with Rancher, or do you use Rancher? So if you are able to answer the good points and the bad points, that takes you in the right direction, that you are able to answer the disadvantages also. Same with Terraform or any such thing. We don't use Terraform. In my organization, we use CloudFormation, even though we are certified on Terraform and all that. But that doesn't we don't have a use case for creating infrastructure with Terraform. We have different kind of environment. So you being able to explain that also, like what issues you faced, how you evaluated certain tools and technologies, that is usually deciding questions, rather than I deployed an application, I built an application, because a lot of people will answer that. But what issues we faced, where we were stuck, how we resolved it, why we selected a specific tool and why not the other tool, those are the probably differentiating questions for me usually to when I'm selecting.
I think, yeah, so what Saurav said, and this is the same thing what I've been also thinking, but the mistake what I was under the impression, whatever the problems I'll tell, maybe those problems are not very, very small, minor, those things are not seen in the industry, not in the organization. I was thinking like that. If I tell the interviewer, no, I was trying to do this, maybe he thinks, okay, this is very noob kind of a question he's asking. The problem he faced is a very minor thing. I was thinking like that.
Nothing is, whatever you encountered building this project, people will face the same sort of issues in the actual, and they will also build like this. So they will have a base, deployment done. Then either some tools will give them the feedback that this is not done correct. You haven't specified the CPU and memory for your Docker image. The limits are not specified, or you are using the secret management default from Kubernetes. So those tools will tell you, or your lead or somebody who is reviewing your code will tell you that, these things are missing. So either as a technical debt or whatever way you are tracking in your organization, you will then build on top of it. Obviously, you will not build entire thing and then you go for a review or something, right? So you start building this, start deploying it to some environment, then based on tools or your lead giving you feedback, then you will go for enhancing, adding deployment, adding limits, all sort of things, secrets, all those things, adding ECR.
Correct.
It's always,
I think I should start applying now.
Yeah, it's always progressively built, even in companies that are highly mature or whatever level they have. The only advantage sometimes they have is that they have, for example, you are using microservice pet clinic being deployed or MySQL being deployed. The only advantage in the organization sometimes we have is you have a reference to look at. So you might have another application, another microservice deployed that has gone through this process and that is already following the best practices. So when you take that as reference, for example, you take another existing microservice in your environment, then you will automatically get some of the good practices that have been followed there. That advantage is usually there in the organizations.
True.
So if they have set up some pod limits or something, you will automatically be reminded that they are using it, so I should use it. If you copy paste something from there and change the image, so that advantage sometimes is there, because we do a lot of copy paste in the organizations.
Correct. Yes.
So how are the others doing? So I think apart from you, Dinesh, so anybody else who has been a little bit successful in achieving it? So Amit, Pawan, Pradeep, Madhu, anybody?
Yeah, hi, this is Pawan. Yeah, I have done till one level, but I'm not sure whether. Yeah, because as you guys are saying, I have little difficulty creating this MySQL InnoDB cluster using Kubernetes.
Okay.
So I found, because it is little tricky, it is not so straightforward as a deployment. If I use 2-3 MySQL pods and syncing those databases and keeping one as a write read and others as a read. So I Googled a lot, I spent a lot of time. And for alternative, I started using RDS. And
so did you refer
RDS,
to did
yeah,
you refer to the repositories that Sharath and others have shared?
Terraform and all also not successful with a single pod I have tested.
Okay.
Okay. But not with the multi MySQL pods. Like, InnoDB, what it'll do, it'll sync the data. I mean, three different.
You are talking about the scenario where you have multiple MySQL pods.
Yes. That
You
one,
can use a stateful set for that, it will sort the issue
it
instead
is
of
not
using
quite-
deployments.
It is not as simple as that, like that. Because when we need to use InnoDB for backend this volume syncing. So RDS, when it comes to RDS, it is straightforward. It is managed by AWS, so it is very easy and simple to use that one. So and most of my time went to Terraform, automating everything. Less manual. Running commands manually or anything. Because now I achieved till one stage, like ArgoCD, Grafana, Prometheus, everything will be installed from the shell scripts and from Kubernetes only. You need to just log in when after applying Terraform, we just need to log in to ArgoCD as well as a Grafana. And after that, after log into ArgoCD, we need to sync with the Git and we need to deploy those things. So I found one Grafana dashboard which is specially built for this EKS, and I started using it.
Can you demo it to us?
Okay, let me start it. So, but I'll start with the code and.
Yeah. If you are ready, we can do it now. If you want to do it next week, we can also do it next week.
Because right now they are in stop state, but it will take some 15 minutes and all. Because I found, this CSI driver, right? CSI driver, it is taking long time. I Googled it for that also. Why it is taking 15 minutes to getting installed, because the
Yeah,
CSI
same for
driver.
me as yeah, it take lots of time just for the CSI driver. Yes.
The CSI driver is required when if you start using this EBS, like
Yes.
block storage,
Yes.
and Prometheus won't successful without this, because Prometheus want to create this PVs and PVCs in the Helm. We're using, I mean, these Helm charts from Prometheus, right? Like their official websites and all. So that, for that, we required CSI drivers. Like for example, I started whatever you said, right? Ingress. Right now, I'm experimenting this one. Like for now, ArgoCD have one service. And I mean, if you see services, like if you do kubectl get SVCs, there are two services I'm getting. One is for ArgoCD and the other one is for Grafana, and the other one is for our application. So I thought of using this ingress and integrating all these three to one load balancer instead of running three load balancers.
Exactly. The one that we discussed just now, right? We want to
Yeah,
use one load balancer, not three.
Three. So if you want, I'll share my Terraform and all, what I've done. But if you want me to start, then we can.
We'll do it next week. You're planning to join, right?
Yeah. Okay.
Let's do it next week. You can start, keep it ready, the setup,
Yeah.
and just explain. And maybe, if something is out of the box in EKS, there is a file that we can use out of the box and which we can use in any EKS cluster, then that's also good.
Actually, I have shared in the group, so they can clone and they can use it, like but they need to do their own key pair and own Ansible thing, so that at least everything will get deployed. That is not a
Can you share once more today?
Yeah.
And Dinesh, you also try to share your repository URL.
You can
Yes.
you guys can see my screen?
Yeah, we can see.
Okay, I have kept it in two parts, Sanjeev. One is like this Docker side, like my Docker file is a little different to what Dinesh has stated. This is simple Docker file. I'm just mentioning only the MySQL part. Okay, I'm not doing anything else, because that MySQL URL and all I'm mentioning inside the environment variables when I'm creating the pod, when I'm doing the deployment. So this is Maven based. This is not.
Okay.
So
My
Pavan, in this Docker file, you don't need to create a user or a group.
no, actually that is what when we are creating MySQL pods, we can mention everything there. So this is my Jenkins. As for time being, I kept the SonarQube outside because I have tested using SonarQube also, and I'm pushing it to my Docker hub repo account. This is my account and all. So this is CI part, and this is where I spend a lot of time actually. These are my Terraform files actually. Provider, everyone, all of you knows, I have created a VPC with the two subnets, private, public, NAT gateways, because I try to write as much as possible in my README also, like what it will do, how this, whether it is chargeable, what they need to change, everything also I have written, try to provide as much information, like this is security gateways, 8080 MySQL port, like this is NFS, like I use block EBS also, EBS, EFS, both I try to use. So those ports I open, and my EK is very simple. Like I have created a cluster using the name EKS cluster 1. After that, 2 nodes with the T3 medium I'm using. And for login purpose and all, I use my SSH key and all. So this is Bastion, like, to log into, I mean, to run the commands and all. I don't want to do it from my laptop. I don't want to install all this AWS, kubectl, EKS, CTL and all. So I'm using this EC2 instance. And in this, I'm installing all these softwares. This is my shell script, like, here I'm changing the host name here, and after that, AWS CLI. After that, yeah, this is kubectls, like, this is almost like, MySQL client I'm installing, Ansible I'm installing,
You
everything.
found it somewhere, Pawan, or you built it yourself?
I built it myself, all these
Awesome,
from scratch.
awesome. Very nice.
All this from scratch. So yeah, this is what I do. Like, for example, after this from this two instance, for example, if I take, ArgoCD, this one, right? For this I need to log into the region, right? So what I have done, I have created a simple Ansible.ml where I'm using access key and all to log in that part. For example, if I go to this one, so I'm running the playbook first, and after that I'm changing the I'm changing this one region to, I'm connecting to my EKS cluster. After that, I'm running this first Prometheus. I'm keeping it in a sleep for 90 seconds because the pods need to come up, right? Before I started installing this Grafana part. So yeah. So
make sure you change those access keys because they are part of recording now. So
I that is what, I didn't think this part, but by mistake I'll change those ones here.
Yeah.
In the recording I showed, yeah. But my GitHub, I didn't think that one. I'll change those here. So this is what I have done. Like, this is my MySQL RDS from Terraform. And if you see my MLs, right, like, these are my MLs. Like, for example, if you see if I use RDS, I just need these secret keys. Other than that, for example, if I use RDS, the only place, these are the thing, this is the value I need to give. Because when we create RDS, it will give this ID.
endpoint.
An endpoint, yeah, with the port number and the database name.
Yeah.
So, and my deployment is having yeah, environment variables also. We mention here, like, yeah, what is from the secret we are reading, yeah, the password and all, yeah.
So yeah, that's why, like, I usually don't restrict how you want to implement a specific project, because unless we don't get this kind of perspective where how you are building that with very nicely done startup for your EC2 instance where kubectl and Ansible and everything gets deployed. The RDS cluster, you can use it in the database for learning. But if you are stuck and you think you are not able to add advanced features, you can look for an external RDS. So these sort of things are nice to try. Basically,
actually, that is what if you run Terraform apply, right, by updating your these two files, this PEM file and Ansible ML file. So it will bring you till this stage, like, this ArgoCD. You need to enter your username and password, and Grafana username and password is admin added. This will be updated inside your. There is one more ML which we need to install. Yeah, most of them is automated only.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, very nicely done, and brings some different perspective also.
Yeah, everything will get installed. We just need to log into those, and this is the dashboard number I used. People, if they want to use some other dashboard, or because I found it is little time taking and tricky to create dashboard from the scratch, Grafana.
Yes.
So, yeah.
So what is this 17119?
This is the dashboard number, Grafana. Yeah, EKS.
Ready-made dashboard. You
Ready-made
just have to
dashboard.
pass the ID.
Oh, wow. That's AWS specific, is it? Some they have
Yeah,
created.
EKS specific, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I mentioned in README also, like dashboard
Great.
ID for EKS cluster.
All right. We'll see some more demo maybe for this dashboard, maybe when you are ready next time.
Yeah.
Pawan, one question here, sorry. Are you also building the project? I mean, building the jar using the same PitClinic project,
Yes.
right? So I am getting this surefire test error. Are you also getting the same error? Have you experienced it
No, I'm not getting any error.
while building with Jenkins? Have you done the automation with Jenkins?
Yes, I have one more Terraform for Jenkins also. Like I'm deploying and building from there. Yes, from Jenkins. Yeah, Jenkins with 2 nodes and SonarQube.
Okay. While building the jar artifact, are you using the MySQL profile as well in the build command?
This is what my Docker file is like.
No. Before this, before doing this, you need to build the artifact. Is it? I'm talking about building the artifact.
That is what I'm creating 2 different images. One is for Pet Clinic and one is for MySQL database.
Yeah, image is fine. I understood. We are creating 2 different images. What I'm saying
Yeah.
is for the project itself, you have to build the artifact, right? The jar, .jar or .var, .here.
That is why I'm not building that not like that. Using Maven, I'm using directly. Like I'm not
Okay.
separate. Yeah. I'm not using I'm not building jar and all. Because Sharath
So
and
you're
all
not
use
doing it exclusively. So you're directly doing it
exclusively.
with the Docker file itself.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can you go to your Jenkins file, please?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, fine. Thanks.
Okay.
Did you, by the way, use that Jenkins plugin to initiate that Docker credentials, or it is something you are grabbing from the Docker itself, from the Docker plugin?
We need to get the login password and we need to create a secret kind of thing inside Jenkins, right?
Okay.
Yeah, that's all from my end. Yeah.
Yeah, because that's where I'm getting permission denied error when it's trying to build that Docker image. When it tries to run Docker-t build, and that is where it gives me the Jenkins pipeline gives me error that it's permission denied. I tried adding that user to that group. Somehow that didn't work.
Okay.
I'll try that.
Actually, that's what, password and all, it stopped taking directly actually. So you need to create a secret in Jenkins, and after that you need to pass it.
Yeah, I mean, a secret pass as in download the plugin, and then we can add it to the configure manage Jenkins and tools configure. In the Docker section, we can share the password, right? That's what you are mentioning?
Yeah, yes.
That's okay. I tried that. That didn't work. We'll explore more. If you have a minute, Pavan, will you just demonstrate it quickly, or it's Jenkins is not running at your end?
Hey, sorry, I'm talking in mute because I need to start my Jenkins server. I'll start now. If you want after the call, we can
Yeah,
spend 5
please,
minutes.
if you can show me, Pavan, that would be really helpful. Thanks.
Sure. After this call, we can communicate like this.
Sure. Thanks.
All right. What else we need to discuss? I don't have any other points to talk about. Maybe next week we try to bring these additional points if you are able to accomplish, but they are anyway stretch goals, customize or secret management. I just wanted to tell you some of the things that you will definitely encounter in any of the interviews or in any new organization where you join. So do experiment with them or at least read about them. Anybody else has any questions or anything they want to discuss?
Sir, how we can add this project in resume and how we can explain? Any idea what we can say in interview, what we have done, or all?
You try to explain like what you have done in this project. That should give you some idea. So can we start, like, can you give an idea, like what would you say if you were to talk about this project?
Actually, I am blank. Actually, when I think about that, I literal blank. I don't understand what to say. That's why actually I have asked.
So see, if I have,
Actually, I'm confused, sir.
what is
Okay.
the confusion? Have you built this project?
Actually, till the database I have done. Okay, and another of that I haven't done, and that's it only.
See, I would probably, if
So,
I have to answer, or I would probably be saying simple terms, simple stuff that I have built and packaged microservices based applications, and I have deployed them into our Kubernetes cluster. I will say that these microservices applications are business applications that were exposed to our customers. So that application I was working with the developers. I understood their requirements, how they want me to build a specific Docker file, how they want me to containerize that application and deploy into the production ready cluster. So I set up the cluster from scratch. I used Terraform to create the cluster in AWS EKS environment. I created that cluster. Then whatever steps that you would have taken, I created some roles that the cluster admin is to be given. And then I integrated with GitOps, where any changes being made to the Git repository, the application was being deployed to my dev, QA, and prod environment based on which branch of the Git repository that I am deploying to. So that's how I would probably explain it, because you would probably explain it few or more additional points, and then you would let the other person ask more questions if they want to.
Okay. We can say that admin give us to dev environment, so we are developing dev application and dev cluster. We have do a lot of what works in a dev, so then it will reflect in main repo.
It's not very clear what you are saying. So first of all, try to build it as much as like in a specific branch, dev branch, you deploy to a dev cluster. Because we are not creating different cluster in this project, we want to use same cluster, but different version of the application. Like there's a dev application in a dev namespace, QA namespace, and production namespace. Have just one replica, maybe don't have to have 2-3 replicas of every container to, so that you don't create a big instance. And then your GitOps will have like 3 projects. In your GitOps deployment, you will have dev, QA, and prod being deployed. So if you accomplish to that level, then tell the same story that you are deploying from a specific branch to a specific environment.
Okay.
And yeah, whatever you are able to build, whether it's monitoring or secret management or a container registry of AWS, just talk about that, how you did that. If you speak without building or building those solutions, then you will be stuck somewhere. Some question may backfire. So best is to first build and then explain.
I have done some work, but I haven't worked on that Spring app with the database. So maybe I will stuck there. How we can connect each other.
Right. Now you know, right? Now you know that how Dinesh and everybody has done it, so you can follow that same process.
Yeah.
All right, guys. It's getting late, and then I will also not feeling so great today. So let's close it for today. I think we have more progress being done by people. So next week, let's try to get the monitoring side done also. And Dinesh, you try to add, or everybody else add those slightly complex features, whether it's creating a Helm chart, customize secret management, the ECR is slightly low priority because that doesn't add any functional changes or any other additional changes, but you will definitely not be using the Docker Hub in your project. So, but that's relatively easier change. That requires more of AWS knowledge than Kubernetes knowledge. And the deployment using the rolling updates and recreate where you destroy everything. There will be a downtime. Your service will not be serving traffic at that point in time, but rolling updates will make sure that your service is up, and you will specify how many to be upgraded at one point in time and when it has to move to the other one. So you progressively add these few additional lines, and your application becomes robust and your deployment becomes smart. Okay, I think that's all from my side. Let's close the call. and let's meet one more time next weekend. If there are, I haven't seen the schedule. If there is no cricket match, then we'll probably meet on Saturday. If there is a big game, then we will change to Sunday. All right, guys. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.